Greetings, everyone. I am so thrilled to be here this morning at the 48th Annual Elementary Physical Education Workshop. I hope so far you're having a great experience. I know you must be. And I just want to, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for taking the time out of your busy lives, right, to continue to engage in professional development. I couldn't be more thrilled on behalf of all of my colleagues in higher education to be able to bring some insights around what we're dealing with at the higher ed level when it comes to preparing the very best future professionals we can. So I'm really looking forward to spending this time with you and talking out some of these issues and engaging with you more about this important topic. So I've noticed some observations through the pandemic, and it's interesting to me, as we in higher ed have witnessed, preparing future professionals during a pandemic has been a very hectic time, as you can imagine. One of the first things that came out of it was that it was very difficult, especially here in New Jersey, to place student teachers into the schools because so much was going on at once, right? But here's my observations about what's been happening. I find that many of our educators weren't really fully prepared to shift into remote settings where there were no facilities and no equipment, which is kind of obvious, right? And no one can blame them. No educator was prepared for this kind of a shift. In fact, I don't know about you, but the first week of the whole thing, it felt like snow days here in New Jersey. So there was scrambling, and there were champions of physical education who were very passionate about knowing as much as they could all at once, while we had the other part of the spectrum where there were teachers that really didn't care about what happened. They just said, tell me what to do and I'll follow whatever it is you're going to do. And then we had these huge reentry guidelines that were pretty rigorous and non-traditional. And many teachers who had instilled many traditional methods now had them stripped away, right? So getting changed in the locker room was no longer a thing. And being able to use equipment was something that was a real big obstacle. And shifting to digital forms of assessment was extremely big, and the use of videos, clips in health, etc. And then this big piece around everybody talking about the whole child for the first time, like ever, like physical education and student wellness became at the forefront, and we were getting attention like we never did before. And future professionals had the benefit of being able to listen to that happen alongside their university professors. And if they were in observation mode or they were in student teaching, they had a firsthand look at that evolution of social emotional learning, which I continue to say was born in health and physical education. And then last but not least, advocacy has become even more important during this very difficult time, especially as we move out of the COVID-19 crisis, to make sure that administrators and boards of education continue to spend the dollars on student wellness and just don't leave us behind again. We've done a lot in this pandemic to be able to prove our worth, as we do all the time, whether there's a pandemic or not. And I think it was really significant for us to really come out and talk about, here's what's happening in our classrooms, and now we're remote, so the veil is lifted, and here we are, here's the work we're doing. Hey, moms and dads and grandmas and sisters and brothers who have been engaging in PE with your student, give us a shout out every once in a while, because physical education has its place in academia, right? So that's a piece that we've always been fighting for, physical education as a viable subject. But really, I feel like the pandemic has offered us a major opportunity, particularly for our future professionals, to be able to carry that advocacy torch into what they're doing and be able to instill in them that advocacy is part of their responsibility as an educator, right? So all of these pieces are what I've seen go on, particularly here in New Jersey, and I'm sure it's typical across the country, around the ways that we've had to famously do that word, pivot. And now here we are emerging, hopefully, out of a crisis and going into a school year where we have to find whatever that new normal is. And so for me, we can never go back to the way it was before. Things have changed. The whole profession has changed. There's no doubt about it. We cannot go back to the way that we did things before. And quite honestly, part of me is really excited about that. I have to tell you, I don't want to go back to the way it was for some things, right? I don't want to go back to the locker room and the changing being so connected to a person's grade. I don't want to go back to physical fitness testing being so high stakes and connected to assessment. I don't want to go back to this emphasis on um, skill acquisition around the playing of a variety of team pursuits and sports. And our national standards have evolved in such a way and will continue to evolve with the revisions project, where we've really started to take a look at physical education as a whole child subject and our contributions to not just the skill competencies and the confidence of a child around physical education and physical literacy, but what else is going on with the child from the inside out. So I ask you to take this slide and say to yourself, well, as we prepare candidates for the field, what are these pieces going to mean for them as they move forward? Because they are inheriting a profession that is now a post-pandemic profession. And all of the pieces that you see here are going to be part of their regular practice, right? Because society is evolving. So obviously, the use of technology is something they live with. The National Standards Revision Project is something that's going to be on the horizon in about 3 years. So that'll be them. We're using conversation and vocabulary around trauma-informed practice and restorative practice, which are initiatives, a way of thinking, a philosophy, quite honestly, that will never go away, right? This is embedded in your instructional practice and not something that comes and goes. This is not a trend in education. It's a necessity, as is social emotional learning. And the idea that when we are in front of children, we have got to be thinking about and conscious about the way we plan for equity and diversity and inclusion in all ways. So the future of the profession, the plate is pretty darn full with things that haven't even had anything to do with content, right? And today you won't hear me talk about how we prepare future professionals to be able to teach the underhand serve in volleyball. We're getting to much deeper things here in this session. Not that that's not important to what a teacher does, but we're talking about making sure that we've got thoughtful, caring educators out in the field and making sure that we're honest about the future professional candidates that are in front of us from the moment they walk into the university door as a freshman to the moment we decide that they are ready to go with a teaching certificate, right? And it's a daunting, difficult task. And we have all kinds of students that present to us at the higher ed level, just like we do in the schools. So it's really important for us as higher ed professionals to really think about not where we are and what we've learned and what we know is really critical to the profession, but also have our hand on the pulse of what's coming, the kind of profession and the kind of society that future professionals are going to inherit over their 35-year career, right? And so why did I name this presentation Future Professionals as Heroes? I really believe, and I've heard from many of my higher education colleagues, that one of the things that they were very proud of among their student teachers was that they emerged as the go-getters around the shift to hybrid learning and online virtual settings. And the reason, obviously, why they emerged was that they grew up in this time. They're much more aware of the kinds of things that engage and excite young people around digital use than many of us did. And I don't think that's about age per se. I think it's about access. I think it's about passion for the digital age. I think it's about familiarity and the participation in all of these types of things, not the least of which are the billions of people across the world that, for example, are on TikTok, right? And how we leverage that site as something that could help us in our educational world. Once the pandemic hit, every young child retreated into gaming. And of course, we were, a little concerned about what was going to happen to kids if they retreated into this world. And then we discovered that some of this gaming included connecting with children from their schools and their friends and young people from all over the world, so that they can connect over the gaming world. This virtual world that they've created for themselves, what they decided was a safe space, a space that helped them relieve stress and escape from problems, and alongside that, the whole piece around, they're stressed, depressed, and anxious at the same time. So young teachers have a familiarity here because they went through it, because it wasn't long ago before they were students themselves. I also am very jealous of these young professionals about the research they have access to that quite honestly didn't exist 30 years ago. I mean, we still talk about some of the key research around the John Rady work and around the Hillman work, around the John Medina work, but these young people have data, quite honestly, that is going to help leverage their importance in the educational landscape, right? We have yet to begun to collect the data on the effect of the pandemic on our children's health. And I suspect that that's going to be ongoing and becoming fast and furious. And our young people have got to know how to analyze that data to become better teachers and to deliver instruction that is relevant and meaningful. So that will start at the higher ed level. And so, yeah, we are creating this group of new teachers that are going to go out there and inherit the newest evolution of physical education in our nation's schools. And they'll be on the forefront of that, right? And for those of us that are teaching things like seminar and methods and activity courses, and adapted, there's a lot of work for us to do to be able to meet these future professionals where they are and help them best prepare, not only with the way they have to be able to learn how to become a teacher and be familiar with a lot of content knowledge, but give them the X factor that it takes. Give them the X factor that it takes. So what have I seen as our role in higher education? Now I'm adapted physics. I'm an adjunct professor at Montclair State University here in New Jersey, and I've done the seminar classes, which primarily is a year-long course from September of the senior year to May. And I've also taught at Monmouth University, where I was teaching elementary and secondary methods courses. So I've had some really cool, significant interactions with future professionals that have really convinced me that the role of our programs are to engage in a fundamental shift. And in shift, I mean thinking about something other than the content we're delivering to future professionals about the what it takes to be a good future professional, a good teacher, but also trying to inspire more talking and creativity and imagination on their part, right? I don't want my students to be spoon-fed and then get out into the field and want to be spoon-fed again by their supervisor. Speaking from the experience of a 17-year veteran supervisor and having onboarded these students into my program, I want them to be able to feel confident to let the rubber hit the road and go, right? We have mentorships throughout our school districts in America, and we bring that future professional in and we engage them in ways how to manage classrooms and behavior, and that's fine. But at the same time, I think we take for granted the fact that future professionals have a lot to offer when they first come into the schools. And some of the very best collaborations are between veteran teachers and first and second year teachers. And I think that comes with a higher ed program that inspires that creativity and that thinking outside of the box. I also believe the shift has to become around rigor, but also the power of relationships. The academic rigor piece will be there. It'll always be here at the higher ed level. But I think we have to start to emphasize the power of the student and teacher relationship and the fact that we can't get any of this fantastic work done. And that means we can't get kids to become these healthy, active lifestyle kids. We can't instill health in them unless we start to get to know who they are. And that's what we want to instill in our future professionals when they go to be in the schools and they're student teaching and they really build those relationships with kids. And that starts with offering those real life scenarios and, you know, alongside being able to teach them what does a good lesson plan look like? How do we unit plan? How do we do skill analysis? And how do we assess? All very important things, very foundational to the success of a physical educator. But the shift I'm talking about is um, pivoting with the shift in the evolution of education itself around those things I talked about: social justice, social emotional learning, and the access now to loads of technology, and how and why and when to use that technology. It has to be embedded in what we're doing in higher ed. And then I think it's about honest conversations with future professionals. Some of the best work I did in my seminar class was to let kids go to breakout rooms and just talk for 20, 25, 30 minutes around some really essential prompts around how their student teaching was going, around whether or not they felt overwhelmed and in what phases of their career they felt overwhelmed, getting them to engage with each other about questions they had about their placements, and then sharing out afterwards. And my students told me that was some of the most powerful time they spent, just to be able to talk to each other. Because in their minds, all week long during the pandemic, they were in virtual settings. And as soon as the professor came on the screen, it was open your notebooks and listen to me for an hour and a half and do your work. And for those of us who are trying to model properly for students, I don't think that served our future professionals very well. And then there's active listening. The best thing we can do for future professionals is to listen and find out where they're coming from, to get our hand on the pulse of where the strengths and weaknesses really are, and meeting them where those weaknesses are and praising them for those strengths. And we shouldn't be doing that a month before they graduate. We should really be building capacity around the moment they come in as freshmen, and rallying together as a department in every university to be on the same page about the expectations. Not only the expectations we have of ourselves and our colleagues, but the expectations we have of our future professionals. So one of the places we do that is to say, well, geez, how are we helping them navigate something as typical as a very horrible student teaching placement, right? This is I don't know, what do you call it, a cliche or a joke in our profession? But there are moments when student teachers are coming back to university professionals and saying, my cooperating teacher is not modeling the kinds of things you said I should be doing, and I don't want to go against the cooperating teacher. It's a common conversation we have at the university level. How come we haven't navigated that in a way that makes sense across the country and across the world? What is the conversation we have with cooperating teachers, with university professionals, and with our students about how to make the most out of whatever environment you're in when you're student teaching? Do we say to them, hey, this is a great opportunity for you to see what not to do, but at the same time, allow them to cower under the cooperating teacher and not do what it is we said they should be doing? Why is this not their moment to be able to shine, right? And I have to tell you, I say this and it's really tough, right? It's a hard thing to say to you all, but at the same time, our student teachers, they killed it. They killed it in the pandemic. They were helping cooperating teachers navigate technology. They were getting in there with Padlet and Flipgrid, and they were getting in there with short video clips in health, and they were getting in there around Google Classroom and Microsoft Teams and Zoom. And they really seamlessly navigated a lot of these things where they were real partners in the educational setting. And there's no reason moving forward why that can't be the template moving forward. There's no reason why that can't exist in-person learning moving forward, and giving kids the opportunity, future professionals the opportunity, to go side by side with their cooperating teachers as partners in the teaching experience, right? At Montclair State, we now call our student teachers interns, teacher interns. And we call our university professors mentors. And I think it's a really cool setup. It might be language and logistics, but at the same time, it really shows the future professional that when they get out into the schools, the expectation is there that You're a teacher now. We're going to treat you as a teacher, and we're going to give you feedback. And it's extremely important that you listen and that you take the feedback and that you adjust your practice. So what do I see our role as university faculty? It's really important for me to model for future professionals the way I want them to be treating their kids in the classroom. And so, because I've got pedagogical experience and because I've got teaching experience in almost every level of education, K through 12, I like to be able to engage my students in ways that teach them how to behave, teach them how to deliver instruction and how to be enthusiastic by being enthusiastic, by being engaging, by maintaining the behaviors that I would expect them to maintain when they go into the schools, right? And so, as elementary as it may sound, as a university professor, I greet my kids at the door. And when I was virtual, I would start out with a dance. I would start out dancing. And every week, my university students would be 2 minutes early just to see what I was going to do next. I want to be able to provide opportunities for them to interact and have discussions about topics of interest, which is why the breakout rooms are so important. When we get back to university campuses, we need to make sure that they have opportunities to have 3 to 4 kids in their group to be able to talk about the issues and topics in PE. Give them essential questions, give them prompts to discuss that spark their interest in the field, right? And that could be something as simple as, what is the role of fitness testing in physical education? Do we even know? Right? So ask them and ask them to try and figure out that problem together. Really get them talking and engaging with each other. Just like we wouldn't expect them to lecture in front of a class of 8th graders for an entire 45 minutes. Let's not do that to them, right? We're the educators. We have backgrounds in the field of teaching. There are other places at the university where they're getting that lecture when they go to other general ed courses. So let's really be humble about modeling for kids, modeling for future professionals, what we expect for them to do with kids. It's really important that we, although we don't want to give it to them, that we not model what good examples of quality work are. Especially when you go to teach future professionals the intricacies of lesson planning. I don't know where you are, whether you have EDTPA in your states, but here in New Jersey we do. And it is a very stress-producing, rigorous process whereby students have got to be explicit about what they're doing with students, why they're doing it, how they're including students with special needs, how they're adapting for children who speak English as a second language, and reflecting on every facet of what could be happening in the classroom. And so we can start by giving them examples of what that quality work looks like. The bar is here, ladies and gentlemen, as you go out into the field. And the bar will always be here around what you see in this particular lesson plan. And when I look at your lesson plans, here's what I'm going to say about what is needed, missing, needs to be edited, needs to be more clear around the academic language, right? Is fundamental to everything we're teaching at the university level is how to properly plan lessons. And I want to instill in future professionals that has got to be a habit of mind, so that when you get out there and you're on your prep in second period and you have a class in third period, you're thinking about kids. You're planning for kids. You're looking for resources on behalf of kids, and your feet are not up on the desk and you're not browsing Amazon to go shopping on your phone. So really important. I also have gotten into the habit of encouraging professional membership rather than asking kids to purchase a textbook. But I only do that where appropriate. There are some books that kids will need to have on their shelves, right? But in other ways, I think it's a really great opportunity to show future professionals that professional membership offers opportunities that are career long, where a textbook might sit on a shelf or get sold back for the money. I'd rather instill in them money spent on something that will give them bang for their buck, if you will. New editions of many textbooks will come out 5, 6, 7 years later, but a professional membership is priceless. and can never be exchanged for anything, and can only bring students closer to their colleagues, closer to their profession, closer to being able to deliver that evolution of physical education through cutting edge practice. So I know this is a scary piece. When I went to school and I was an undergrad, professional membership was an expectation. But now I say embedded into the requirements of a course so that students are spending money on something very, very valuable. Now am I preaching for Shape America membership and state AFERD membership and state SHAPE membership? I am, but it's not because I want kids' money. It's because I want them to be have an expectation to be connected to a superhighway network, right? When I was a supervisor and I went to interview candidates, it was very important to me that I saw evidence that they were connected to their profession in a way that was other than their classes, a way that was other than their student teaching. How does the candidate go above and beyond to show me their passion and enthusiasm for the profession? And, membership is one way. It definitely is one way. And when you get 150, 200 applicants for a job, you're looking for the X factor, and membership happens to be one of those. And then, of course, encouraging the workshops and the webinars and the conferences, and even the chats on social media. These students that are going to graduate into professionals, they have to leverage the power of social media. They have to leverage the power of what they have at their fingertips to be able to learn as much as they can. And I never saw that come to life the way I did when the pandemic hit and the whole world took to Twitter under the hashtag HPE at home was the hashtag. And every educator that was looking for new ways to be able to innovate were sharing on Twitter and sharing on social media lessons and videos and content. It was fantastic to watch, and one more testament to the reason why students have got to go seek out reliable and meaningful content and resources that are standards aligned. So we as a university needing to provide that networking. Me saying to students, I'm going to cancel class this week because I need you to attend the state health and phys ed convention. That lets students know what I value, right? That lets students know what I care about and what I think is important to them in the profession. Now, a university professor canceling their class, oh my God, that's horrible. No, but at the same time, the 2 hours or the 2.5 hours that I sacrifice versus them having an experience that I want them to have for the rest of their life. I mean, you can't leverage that any differently, right? I want them to be able to get hooked at that convention. I want them to be able to see and look around at the young, the old, the veteran, the new teachers in the profession that are as passionate now as they were the day they started, and show them the model for excellence that I expect. And by virtue of me saying, I need you to go to the convention, I can also flush out those future professionals that don't have a passion for what it is we're doing, because those are the future professionals that are going to feel very uncomfortable on the exhibition floor, very uncomfortable in the sessions, and really rethink to themselves, do I have what it takes to do this? And either step up their game after they do this, or say to themselves, I don't know if I could ever do what that person's doing, or I'm too introvert to do this, but I bet you I could do that. It's invaluable for future professionals to have these experiences in the field, ones that I want to model for them that they will actually have when they go out there, ones that they should be advocating for, quite honestly. All right, so there we go. So some of the things I did to be able to bring my future professionals closer to what they would be doing. This was one of the top things, bringing in actual teachers, which I'm sure all of my colleagues that are listening are doing, into those methods and seminar experiences. I bring these guests in and I feel kind of bad for myself because I'm no longer the most popular person in my class. Okay, and you read these reflections of future professionals talking about these teachers who are talking about what's really happening in the field. And you're like, oh boy, now I'm coming second. It's okay. It's not a popularity contest. They love the K-5 teacher more than they love me. But here's the thing. The ways in which they are engaged when they are listening to the real struggles of a K-5 teacher, the real stuff that goes on with students that they may not have thought of before, the attentiveness that they give to someone in the field whom they have the utmost respect because they know it's going to be them soon. It's powerful. It's powerful. Sometimes I get asked to come and guest speak in courses in other colleges. And I don't know about my professor colleagues, but it's always like, I tell them till I'm blue in the face, but when they hear it from somebody else, they believe it, right? What is that? I don't know what that is. It's a thing. But it really becomes a really cool thing, and it breaks up the monotony of a class, right? Um, Bringing them new experiences is really important. We don't want them to get bored. We don't want them to roll their eyes before they have to come to our class. We want them to expect the unexpected and to have many perspectives in front of them when it comes to the environments that they're going to teach in. And I think bringing in actual health and PE teachers is a real plus, a real must, and a great investment for your university. And then only offering resources that are current and supported by standards. I can't tell you how many times I've mentored student teachers and I've asked to see their lesson plan. And the first thing I ask them is, where did you get this lesson? Where did you get these resources from? Where did you get this video? Where did you get this website? And I'm always very wary when students tell me that they looked it up themselves, that they got it off PE Central, which is a great site, but you've got to know what to pick from PE Central, right? I'm always worried about current, reliable, standards-aligned resources. And as a university professor, it was always extremely important to me to point students in the direction of where they should be looking into the future, right? So just as we have this skill-based health practice in the schools around finding reliable and meaningful and valid sources of information on the internet, we've also got to instill that standard, that skill into our future professionals, right? Otherwise, they'll be picking from the same well. They'll just be dipping into the PE Central well the whole time and teaching the same lessons over and over and over again. So one of the things I'm very mindful of in all the courses I teach is to make sure that I'm offering them resources and showing them the difference between a valid resource on the internet and a not so valid resource on the internet, right? I mean, kids could be going to websites that offer lesson plans in dodgeball, and they must think to themselves, well, if this website, which is a formidable phys ed website, has dodgeball on it, I must be allowed to teach it, right? So we've got to be very careful there and walk future professionals through not only what to look for, but how to look. And then, of course, the conversation I've been having for decades is health education. Health education and its role in our professions has become so critical around making sure that we instill skill-based health education in every university across the globe. It's so important. And I, as a health educator that taught all the time through content-based methods, never thinking that it was not important to teach the risk factors for heart disease or the different types of sexual transmitted infection and the difference between bacteria and a virus. I always thought those things were so important, and I had to get kids to memorize all those things. In the digital age, that's not where we are. And we've really got to revamp university programming around health education to make it count, because clearly across the globe, we're not offering as many health education courses as we are physical education courses. So if you've only got, 3-4 courses that you're offering kids, they better have lots of knowledge-based stuff around skill-based health education. How to teach a teacher, how to teach goal setting, how to teach a teacher, how to teach analyzing influences, how to embed resources around where to find lesson planning and skill-based health education, because the evolution of physical education and health that they are inheriting means that if a child can find whatever the information is on their phone, it shouldn't be taught in a health ed class. If a child can find information on their phone, it shouldn't be what we're teaching. We should teach them how to look on their phone, how to find reliable websites, how to find valid information around their health. So I really encourage higher education to emphasize the critical role of health education, particularly skill-based health education. And then I don't renege on my responsibility as an adjunct professor to stay current in and contribute to my own field and model for future professionals the way that looks, and model that professional responsibility. So all that to say, I think that as passionate as we are as higher education professionals, and our ability to give kids the most cutting edge research and the pedagogy around what it takes to be an effective teacher, I also think we need to keep it real. And if we really want kids to be heroes, we have to emphasize the need for them to lead with relationships, to lead with enthusiasm, to have compassion and empathy for students. And in doing that, we need to do the same thing. We need to build relationships with our future professionals before we attack them with rigor. We need to be enthusiastic around them becoming teachers, because let's face it, there's not a lot of people going into teaching anymore. And we are suffering as higher education programming, where programs are dropping left and right across the country out of the university program. So we've got to show the enthusiasm for the profession that we're talking about. We have to have compassion for our future professionals, particularly if they are struggling through processes such as EDTPA, if they're struggling in the area of student teaching, and they're not navigating well emotionally through those very difficult things. And we have to have empathy, even at the college level. And, you know, I found that it went a long way to helping my future professionals really trust me and respect me in the ways I needed them to, when I really tried to meet them where they are, right? So we've got to be human, and we have to know that although we want to hold them accountable for excellence on behalf of our university, there are a lot of other things in play. And I think the more we model for students that are going to be teaching candidates how we want them to behave in the actual classroom, then I think the better off we're going to be. Now, you may disagree. You may say, Jude, you know, it's not my responsibility to take on what it is that should be happening in the school age setting. I beg to argue, and here's why. Think about our role in what goes on in pre-K to 12. These children are the recipients of the work we are doing in our universities. As we teach future professionals how to deliver instruction, we should be thinking about school children as being in the forefront of the delivery we're expecting. As we evolve as higher education programs in physical education, we can't forget that students stay the same age. 5-year-olds are still 5-year-olds, right? When I first started teaching and I was 24 years old and I was teaching a 5-year-old, even though I turned 48, they were still 5 years old in a life that was evolving around society. So we've got to remember that they don't grow up with us, right? They still have individual and unique needs, needs that are becoming more complex, needs that are more deep than ever before, given how we will re-enter society after COVID-19 in person in the schools in September, or whenever you're all going back to school. I don't know what it is we're going to be looking at. Are we going to be looking at kids that are afraid to hug you? Are we going to be looking at school-age children who are going to still keep their distance and wear masks because they are afraid? And how do we navigate helping them not be afraid? And what my expectation is that we as university professors have got to acknowledge that there is a new way of teaching that helps us to get to a place where we're teaching children from the inside out. All right, from the inside out, meaning that they won't care what our future professionals know unless they know that our future professionals care. So when I think of future professionals as heroes, I don't say that the things we're already doing in higher ed are not working. They absolutely are. There are essential aspects of teaching teachers how to be teachers that will never be replaced. They must know instructional message. They must know best practice. They need to know how to assess appropriately. They need to do solid and appropriate lesson planning with solid learning objectives. All of those critically foundational to a student's success as a physical education teacher for the rest of their career. And unequivocally, 100% our responsibility to make sure they know all of those critical things: motor learning, kinesiology, measurement. However, if I think about how I want students to be successful when they go into teaching, I think about the fact that I want them to inspire students by being inspired by us. And so if they are going to be teachers of character, teachers of rigor, teachers of enthusiasm, and reflective practice, right? I want that to be inspired by us, because I want us to do that so that we can eliminate the stereotypes that continue to be in our profession around, physical education. So in closing, I will say that I agree with being tough on new teachers, on teachers that are going into the field. It's important to relay rigor and academic rigor in everything they're doing, but it's also important to be fair around those things. I have a big belief in Covey's work around seeking first to understand, even at the university level. So I do a lot of active listening with my students. I really think it's important to take the time to know what makes each of them tick and find out their story, just like we want them to find out the story of their students. And take the time that we need to meet each of them where they are early on in the program, right? When they're freshmen, and have the moral courage to know when to tell them that maybe an alternative career might be more appropriate for them in athletic training or whatever, sports management, because we want to say that our university represents the very best. And so if we let students slip through the cracks and graduate and bear the name of our university on everything they do, we want to stand behind that. We want to stand behind our brand and the authenticity and the professionalism of our brand. So I think that starts with meeting every student where they are from the moment they walk in the door. And of course, inspire kids through your example. Be passionate about physical education. Be passionate about the program you've built at the university. Collaborate with your colleagues the way we want our student teachers to collaborate with theirs. And resolve those conflicts if any exist. And just in closing, I want to talk about the other part of my life when I was a supervisor for 17 years, right? So you would graduate these students, and then they would come in front of me as someone who would ask them questions around whether or not they could be successful in my schools. And when I hired candidates, the really one critical question for me was why they wanted to become a health and physical educator, and relay to me whether or not they'll care for and love every one of my students by answering me that they go into the profession for kids, not for themselves. So how does your university program reflect those values around what the schools are looking for on behalf of every child? Really important stuff. So I can't thank you all enough for what you do at this very difficult time. I am with you in spirit, even though we are virtual. And I was really looking forward to making sure that we as a higher ed faculty got a chance to talk today and do more work together across the country around how to inspire young teachers to take over and to take a leadership role. So if you have questions for me, please contact me at Montclair State University at the email address you see there. And I'm also on Twitter at AJ I thank you so much for your attention today, and I want you to enjoy the rest of this EPEW conference. Thank you so much. Take care and have a great day, and stay well.
Thank you for attending the 48th Annual Elementary Physical Education Workshop. We're glad you were here.
Please follow us on our social media platforms. EPEW can be found on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube.
Please check out our website for links to more great sessions. Just go to epew-cp.weebly.com and click on the virtual EPEW 2021 tab at the top and scroll down.
EPEW 2021 Educators Assemble would not be possible without the support and dedication from the amazing EPEW committee. The committee has been hard at work for months preparing for this workshop. Thank you to Linda McGee, Barbara Groton, Scott Wilson, Stephanie Sandino, Julie Miller, Jessica Monlux, Kayla Ailman, Shelby Lozano, Andrea Chavez, Scott Townsend, and Cindy Chase.
Thank you for attending EPEW, where our motto is, come to learn, leave as family.